The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Bumblefoot. Bumblefoot.
Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys. They let us think that we're big boys. They let us make a lot of noise, but we ain't rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. For you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you. With you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
Alright.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. For you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Please take your seat above all. We will be able to prepare for kickoff. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and liftoff.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Space Out Radio tonight as we round out another week. I am your host, Dave Scott. It's great to have you along for the ride on this Friday, November 24th. Saturday, November 25th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. Hope you had a great day and night. We are live right here in the Great White North on top of the wet mountains of central British Columbia as we are here for you 7 days a week. We welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us. We're also on spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, TheFringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. If you like our music, you could thank Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy and Sons of Apollo. Bumblefoot is the official music of SOR. Now, if you aren't following us on social media by now, why aren't you? You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. You can subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. No longer Spaced Out Radio Show. So if you're subscribed to the old channel, take that one off because the archives are no longer going to be there very soon. Come over to the new one, Spaced Out Radio. We'd love to have you there. You can also listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows from iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, we have 2 chat rooms for you to choose from. If you want to take part in this show, you can either go on to Spreaker, sign on in with your Facebook, chat away there, or you can sign on Facebook in the SOR Space Travelers group. We'd love to chat with you in there as well. Or if you're on Twitter, you could be like Graviton, Derek, or Michelle, and just use hashtag SpaceOutRadio, and I'll connect live with you there as well. Now, if you head to our website for $5 a month, you can join the SOR Space Travelers Club. We encourage it. You can also shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, because think how good you would look in an SOR t-shirt. We have the Encounter Online, dealing with everything paranormal, strange in the news, and you can also read up on my latest blog. And if you've had an experience you cannot explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. We also have great videos from Tim Doyle's UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV, and so much more. You know, it's always good to be back on this Friday night here on the West Coast, is where I hope that there are some survivors down south from Black Friday and the brawls that usually happen in the department stores that make today so entertaining. So strange and ironic that it comes a day after giving thanks for everything that you have. Family, friends, what you've earned in your life. Then you go beat the hell out of each other in the stores. I love it. That's why we love America. Tonight, it's the Paranormal Roundtable, so I have some friends with me coming in to discuss, debate, and talk about the month that was in our field. It's a fun show because none of us really know each other's questions, and it's all about thinking quick off the top of our heads. Of course, we'll get to your questions as well, so I want to introduce tonight's panel. From Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Sundays, we have Elizabeth Anglin. I'm the token Canadian here, so she's the token female. We have Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal and S4. Corey Reeves from Forest Moon Paranormal and S4. Eric Markham, S4, and our resident scientist for Spaced Out Radio. And from KTLK, TheFringe.fm, and Lighting the Void, we have Mr. Joseph, My Hair is Beautiful, Roop. Good to have you all here, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in on this Friday night. What's up?
Dave? It's always nice to be here.
Yeah, it's good.
My hair is beautiful. My stubble is beautiful.
Yes. Well, you know, normally Cooper has a really good beard, but he had to shave it off. And usually when Cooper has to shave, I give him a pretty hard time because he's got some quality facial beard going on. But explain, Coop, why you had to shave.
Well, because, you know, Veterans Day and all, and my 5-year-old wanted me to go to his classroom in uniform. So, you know, I just, going in uniform during Halloween is one thing. I can get away with a beard and say I'm special forces and whatnot. But when you go into what turned out to be 50 different 5 and 6-year-olds, and I'm representing my uniform, I'm going to shave and cut my hair.
Don't blame you at all. Don't blame you at all. And once again, for you and every veteran out there who listens to this show, thank you so much for your service, my friend. It is fantastic what you do for us. Now, I want to explain the roundtable once again to absolutely everybody, okay? We go in, we ask a bunch of questions. This is about discussion. It's about debate. Some topics get heated, others do not. We try and stay away from the political side, and we try and stay away from anything that is what we consider around here fake news or fear-mongering. Now, that being said, we're going to start off right off the bat, because last night I think we had one of the best shows that we've ever had on Spaced Out Radio with Grant Cameron, and then in hour number 3, Lorian Fenton joined us. I didn't talk much last night, and this goes in regards to Tom DeLonge and his To the Stars Academy. And I know, Corey, I hope my question doesn't line up with yours, and I apologize if it does, but because I know Corey has a Tom DeLonge question as well. But here's one of the things that kind of caught me off guard with one of the things Grant said last night. And Elizabeth, we'll start with you on this one.
Okay.
And that question was, Grant had stated that people like DeLonge or Corey Goode or Stephen Greer, they're all pawns in the U.S. government that are just the latest in the names to actually come on out and give their interpretation with so-called senior government official backing about the UFO phenomena. What is real? What is fake? What is your thoughts on Tom DeLonge just being another pawn in this game that has been going on the last 40, 50 years?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't say enough about Stephen Greer. I was really, really hot on Stephen Greer because he was into calling in ships, but then he has all of this other information that's absolutely, in my opinion and my experience, incorrect and untrue. So I can't, and with Tom DeLonge going about it the way that he's going about it, again, that's information or the viewpoint. It really speaks to government. I've met some people who were rehabs or MyLabs or rehabs in the past few years, and they are just, aliens are bad. They have to be taken out. And these are people who were trained with, in remote viewing on ships. These were people that the aliens trained. The government has gotten hold of them, and they're just going, aliens are bad. You have to take them out. And so, to me, it's 100%. This is exactly what he is. I couldn't believe they were saying it so succinctly. So that's my opinion.
Coop, are you a firm believer that there are numerous sides to the UFO phenomenon where people are being used as pawns, and Tom DeLonge probably has a 1 to 2 year shelf life on this?
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm learning a lot because, I'm in the Homeland Security program, and, when I went into that program, I was thinking I was going to be a minority based on, going to Iraq, the whole 9/11 inside. And come to find out, I'm not the minority. People in our own government within the Homeland Security program, in the intelligence community, all do not like the government. This is coming straight from some of the professors I learned from, in that, yes, there are pawns. There is so much discord and chaos within our own government. Different agencies that don't talk to each other, different agencies that are looked down upon by the Americans thinking they're the enemy when they're really not. Homeland Security is not the enemy. There are people within the government that are, and even Homeland Security does not like them. So are there pawns? Yeah, most definitely, without a doubt. And that's not even conspiracy anymore.
Joe Roop, what do you think in regards to DeLong being a pawn? Do you think they're just playing him right now to try and raise money to look good in front of the public, or do you think that, they're just playing him to see what he does? Because let's face it, for the first $1 million, Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers, through the SEC and their records, found out that DeLong will get the first $700,000 of the first $1 million that was raised for his own pocket, and to date, To the Stars has raised just a hair over $2 million.
I think after reading, I went back through his book. I think he really did stumble upon something. And I think they're just keeping him under wraps. He's a big public figure, and if you listen to what he's saying, they actually kind of came to him. So I think he actually did find something, but I think that they're going to keep him under wraps and tell him that they're his best buddies, and they're going to do all this stuff for him. Meanwhile, use him like a pawn.
Couldn't it be ego that says that they came to him? To me,
could be. It could be.
To me, I mean, that's just like you and I walking into the local government building and saying, "Hey, I want to be best friends with the mayor or the governor," or up here we call our leaders premiers of each province. Okay, so I really don't see how all of a sudden these bigwigs from, the CIA and Central Intelligence and the NSA and Lockheed Skunk Works are all of a sudden, "Hey, Tom, come for lunch. Let me show you what we're hiding."
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they're doing that. I think that he might have uncovered something, especially in his fiction book, and they're just keeping the wraps on him. Meanwhile, using him for other things. They're using him as a pawn for sure, but more ways than one. It isn't just about the money. It's probably a lot of misdirection. Could be. We don't know right now, but I think that they're playing him for sure.
Preacher, how do you think that they are playing Tom DeLong as the latest pawn in the UFO government scheme?
Oh, I think they're playing him like a harp, and I think he knows it. But yet, $750,000 is a lot of coin to turn away, especially if you're a has-been rocker, because those people tend to have a lifestyle that they go through money like, ants go through an anthill. So I have no doubt that he's disinformation, or, that it's all scripted.
What gives you that feeling?
Okay, you have somebody who hasn't been relevant for a long time. That's got to hurt the ego. And now he gets a chance to jump on the bandwagon with something like UFOs and get relevance again, be in the public eye, and a $750,000 kicker. It stinks of misinformation, and like my last blog about being gullible and being in the paranormal. There's no end of people that they can jerk around like that. They can pull somebody like him and make him the star of the moment. By this time next year, and nobody's going to remember Tom DeLong and his project, other than a few that gave money and realized that they got skinned. I think it's going to end up in probably a lawsuit.
Oh, probably. Now let's get over to you, Corey Rees. What is your opinion on DeLong being a pawn in this game? Do you think he realizes how dangerous it actually is?
Mr. Ding Dong DeLong? Yeah, I don't know if he realizes how dangerous it is. I mean, this guy he's got an ego about him. But here's the thing: as I watched an interview with this cat. And he was on, what was it? The Joe Rogan Experience. I was watching an interview with him. And to sum up what that interview came down to, was that he agreed with the government on how they had done things up to this point, that he was working with the government, and that he was their line of communication to get soft disclosure out there of what was really going on. Now, what I find here is that this really kind of lines up with something a little from the past, because we know how our history repeats itself. So back in the day, there was a gentleman by the name of Paul Benowitz, and another gentleman by the name of Richard Doty. Richard Doty worked for the government. Mr. Benowitz was a business owner, and he lived very close to a military base, and he was, kind of a scientist in his own right, and he was doing a lot of collection of data, and he was seeing a lot of these things that were happening across on this base and whatnot. And finally, one day, of course, being the American that he was, he decided to call the Air Force. Well, the Air Force jumped him around and put him in with this Mr. Richard Doty that used to work with him. And this Doty, he'd basically come on, after being retired and admitted to this stuff, and basically did something very similar to what you see happening right now. Kind of brought this guy in. Oh, yeah, there's this UFO stuff, and you should have this information, and you should put it out there. And they end up destroying this guy. That's Richard Doty. That was his job of the government. His job was to take this guy who was getting some real stuff and just tear him up, just destroy him. And that's exactly what happened. His life was totally kaput after they got done with it. So, that's what I'm seeing. It looks very similar to what happened to them. This is just a little more modern version of it. I think basically all that's going to happen is that, this guy he's going to get in with these guys. They're going to do the same thing to him. And eventually, like you said, a couple years down the road, who's DeLong? We don't know him.
Well, I personally think that maybe he needs to go back to rock and roll, because he has made about $60 million in his music career. Good for him. I don't like a lot of the things that he is doing in regards to trying to convince people that all aliens are bad. I'm trying not to step on anybody else who has questions here in regards to Tom DeLonge. But, there are a lot of people in this field who are absolutely sick and tired of this topic about Tom DeLonge and it being absolutely, cut every way possible to try and figure out, what the angle is to that. But I'm going to tell you right now, as a journalist, we're not letting this story go here. We're going to follow this one straight on through, because I strongly believe that there is more to this story than what we know. And as a media outlet in the alternative media, even though many of our listeners may not like that we keep pursuing this story, we're going to keep pursuing it. Because in the end, as you've heard me say numerous times, I am still very upset that the fact that today is November 24th, and on October 11th, I sent in a media request for an interview. Nor have I heard back.
Yeah, I sent one in a while back too, Dave, and I've been getting the runaround for a while. Yeah. Well, it was first was from the website, then I got an email back from the media team, and I sent another one. Then I got another email back from them that was saying I emailed the wrong person, and I'm like, no, I didn't, and it's been nothing but a runaround from them.
Yeah. They're dodging the media, and, we all talk about truth in media here, guys and girls who are listening. Okay, if you want truth in media, especially if you're in the audience, look at it the way I do. Okay, that's your choice. You have the power to look at it any way you want. But if you look at it the way I do, you will notice, or even the way Joe is, they are hiding from media outlets. And when someone hides from a media outlet, everyone loses. Everyone loses. And that's not good for anybody in this field, much the same for anybody who is listening or thinking of donating to this cause. So we're going to move on now, and we're going to get to, who should we choose? Let's go up and down the list. Eric Markham, for your first question of the night.
Okay. We just recently had a show about the JFK assassination, and it's easy to get caught up in wanting the answer. But my question is just this. If full JFK assassination disclosure came out, every fact, what would it change? He's still dead. The country's still where it's at. I mean, at this point, most of the players are dead. What would be the end result? of having this, the truth come out.
We asked Brian Snowdy this the other night in the interview, and he brought up a very good point on this, and I'm curious on what the panel thinks about this, Markham, but the idea behind it was, even though all the major players are dead, how does it affect their families? What happens to the Johnson Library? What happens to his family or other people who are involved? What happens to the lone survivor of that Kennedy family, Caroline Kennedy? What kind of nightmare does she have to now go through? And I think in the end, what a lot of people are thinking is maybe it's best to just let sleeping dogs lie here, even though the public has a right to know. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I think that the other factor you have to look at too is that, the fact that they're not bringing out all the facts continually makes it look as if, and we all know it as is, that the government's keeping everybody on edge. They don't know what's going on. They, literally kind of keeping a distrust going on. And you know what? If they had brought out all of the facts, there would probably actually be some trust that would show up there.
Well, I think they trot this out every once in a while just as a distraction. I think its appeal is rapidly dwindling because the generation that really cares is, toes up in the graveyard by now. I think I was 6 months old when it happened. So,
I don't know about that.
In my 50s. Well, I think you're always going to have a hardcore bunch of the conspiracy people, the James Fetzers, and I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm demeaning them, but there's always going to be people who want to pursue and find the truth out. But I think by and large, as the public ages, it's going to lose its importance. Kids in their 20s don't really care. He didn't have an iPod, so he doesn't mean anything.
I don't know about that. I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, if I was to say, they finally zoomed in on that letter at Roswell, and they can actually see what it's showing now. I wasn't born there then either, but I want to know. I think my son would want to know. I think we deserve to know the truth. And for the profane people out there that only care about iPods, when they find out for real, not just that their government lies, we all know the government lies, but I think it's important to know to what extent they will lie, no matter when it happened. Because if they'll do it then, they'll do it now. And that day that happened was the shift of everything good about this country, in my opinion. So it's real important to know.
But Joe, go ahead, Coop.
It's going to show how corrupt. It's going to show how corrupt the government is. I mean, we all know the government's corrupt anyway, but you show, everything that happened with JFK. It's going to show, really. I didn't get to hear the show, but I think the CIA. Not sure if that was brought up or not, but I think the CIA had a lot to do with it.
And could very well be that the CIA had a lot to do with it. And, I think what it does do, getting to your question, Preacher, is it does open up a lot of Pandora's boxes as to whether or not the government is killing off its own people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's kind of taken as a given, though.
Yeah, but
I think the people have gotten cynical enough that when it doesn't happen, we're more surprised than when it does happen. The weird plane crash, the apparent heart attack. It's just sort of a business as usual, and we've come to expect it from our government. I think, full disclosure, what happened to JFK would probably do very, I think the main thing it would be is like, yeah, that's what I thought, and people would just go on with their lives. I think the people have gotten to the point where their confidence in government couldn't really get much lower. And the government doesn't care. Yeah, the government doesn't care.
Well, the more they don't care, the less people are going to vote. What do you think, Liz?
I think that the important thing is if the truth were to come out, and say, for example, if you were to find that the military had something to do with it because they were upset that JFK made overtures of peace with Russia, and all of a sudden the military is taking out the president, I think people would want to know that. I think they'd want to know if the military is taking out its chief commander-in-chief. Because when that happens, when you all of a sudden realize that you're living in a military state, whether or not you believe you are, that changes the way that you perceive your government to an extent that it could foment actual change in terms of, who are we and what are we doing? Oh, we've been living in a military state for how many decades? So I think it is important. I think it would be a good thing to know exactly what happened and who did what. And it might have been everybody. It might have been the mob. It might have been Hoover. It might have been the military. It might have been the CIA. But if you think about how angry he made the military commanders, even though he was the commander-in-chief, you want to know that. You would want to know what was happening after that, who actually runs things, because I think we feel that something did go wrong at that time, but we don't have, everybody has plausible deniability, and if they didn't have plausible deniability, then we'd know what went wrong.
Okay, so
what could we do about it, though?
That's not the...
what was the basic thing? What would change?
Well, knowledge is power. You can't say that knowledge isn't power, and it empowers people to say, okay, this went wrong, and it's been wrong for how many decades? Let's see if it's still wrong. Let's fix it.
People might start voting with their money a little bit more, Yeah.
Those
people that are on their iPods, that don't vote at all, or especially don't vote with their money, but sit around and complain about everything but do nothing, they might actually start doing something once they see how screwed up things really are. Not that we all know that. We already know everybody's lying, but that's not the point. It's time to bury them. It would be great to get that validity.
You know
and
what?
For JFK as a whole.
One of our longest listeners to this show, Mr. Cog, out of Alaska, he makes a very good point in the chat room here, and he says, we cannot progress as a society living in lies.
That's right.
And that is a huge one. And you know what? I think what happens is if the lid was blown off of this and the mainstream public had to look at the CIA, the NSA, Lyndon Johnson, whoever it may be that caused this killing, if it were a conspiracy, the fact that what it would do is it would turn, I don't want to say into a civil war, but you could see a lot of protests and a lot of people lining up at these buildings saying, we're not doing this anymore. You're either out or you clean up. One of the two.
Here's one of the things that I look at is I agree with Cog. I agree with Joe and Elizabeth on the fact that we have the right to know. And that something needs to be done and that we can't live in lies. But I also agree with Markham on this. And I see it every day. And we like to look at it from the side of things, from our side of things. Like our thoughts are more of what everybody else would think. But the reality is it isn't. We as Americans as a whole, as the larger majority here, have become very, very, very lazy. And the fact of the matter is there's a lot of them anymore that don't care. They don't care at all. And, they hear about it, they see about it, they sometimes complain about it, but they're not going to do anything. They don't care to move anything. They don't care to do anything. They don't care to protest. They just don't care. The majority is that. We are literally the ones who give a crap, the ones who want to see change, the ones that want to disclose the fact of how bad they're lying and make them eat crow. We are the minority, and that is the truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hard to fight apathy.
Very true. Very true. It's hard to fight apathy, but it all
How
starts.
do you fight apathy, though?
Truth.
Yeah, you got to hit somebody. You got to hit people with something so heinous that it finally gets them moving. And I don't think we have become so inured to horror that I don't think there's anything that could get people to move. I think it's just become a fatalistic form of apathy. It's I'll work till I'll retire, pay my taxes, and check out. I don't think they're
and that is and I understand exactly what Preacher is saying here, guys. It doesn't matter whether you're in the United States or you're in Canada. People have given up on the trust of government. I think we can all agree on that. We don't know what's real or what's fake, because even if we vote in another party, it's the same BS that we have to put up with. The government lies, the lobbyists still getting their ways, nothing ever changes, taxes go up, taxes go down, there's never any more money for the middle class, the lower classes are struggling even worse. It all ties into one. And the whole point is, and this is my opinion, Eric, and maybe you can agree or disagree, but if the JFK assassination does come out and it is shown that the CIA did it and the NSA was involved or whatever alphabet group was in there, and that Lyndon Johnson was the one who called this or was one of the big three players in this, that has the ability to change the entire course of history and the military-industrial complex that the current government and the current United States situation is in.
How? Because those very people that you're citing here are the ones that have all the... It doesn't matter what clown we elect to be a president, because whoever's in charge, whether it's going to be... They're playing to a script. They're not, they're not the ones that are in control of all this. Eisenhower tried to warn us back in the 50s about what would happen if we didn't get a handle on the military-industrial complex. We the people are not. It's not Joe Roop. It's not Eric Markham. We're not the people. The people are Raytheon and McDonnell Douglas and these big military and big pharma. Follow the money. Money talks.
I understand.
That may be the state of truth, but that statement of believing that is the whole problem. That's why we're apathetic, because we've given up and we just believe that. You want to change the world? Vote with your money. Start voting with your money. Stop buying crap you don't want or you don't believe in. Everybody votes with their money, everything changes. Everything.
Consumerism is what it is.
Oh, yeah, Black Friday. I mean, people are literally going into these stores and acting like animals. Actually, that's an insult to animals. That's an insult to animals. They're acting like just garbage wrapped in skin. And, the people that are putting these out have to be laughing their butts off. They have us so conditioned for the most part. You must go out and buy on Black Friday. I didn't buy crap.
Oh, I don't believe that for a second. I will almost guarantee that you hopped on eBay today to look at more guitars.
No, actually, I didn't. I really didn't.
I don't know. You have an addiction.
Now, though, now that you
exactly.
Now that you've mentioned it, I could check.
All right, we are moving on. Let's get to Joe Roop's first question of the night.
Well, that was actually going to be. I'm glad we're talking about this, because that was actually going to be my first question. Do you believe that, based on the Kennedy papers and stuff, that no matter what we do, this was going to be my question for a Paranormal Roundtable before I didn't get to ask, that we're powerless, that the people are powerless and we're done for and there's nothing we can do and things are always going to be the way they are. Do you really believe that?
I can give you a good example of that stuff. I can give you a solid example of that stuff. Okay, so here in Washington, we have something that is called, what the heck is it? the Bolt decision. And it is for tribes to be able to have, as they say, 50% of the catch of salmon and stuff coming up the rivers and in the salt chuck. Okay? For years and years and years, that power has shifted so much to the side of the tribes. And for the most part, really, honestly, I'm going to say this. I have nothing against them, really. But so far to the size that they are taking and over half, way over half, of what is supposed to be a shared catch. They are doing things that are killing off other species and refuse to say it. And, I'm in a fishing political group that has been trying to work with government and such to try to at least bring things back to what the law states, right? Equality. But we can get no help from our government, no help from our judicial system. Anytime that we try to do anything, they look right at us and say, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to side with them. It doesn't matter what you say. We don't care. I don't care if the law says that. We're going to side with them.
So what is it about? You talking about fish?
Yeah,
is that
I'm
what you're
talking about
here?
fish. It's
okay.
Yeah, it's a basic example. I'm just giving an example, but this is just a small example of how we're trying to vote with our money, work with our government, and our government tells us go to hell.
Well, you're just a voice. When you can get 40,000 people not to buy the stuff anymore, then you're doing something.
Well, and that's the problem, is that, you know how long it's taken for our chapter that we have up here just to get like 90 members? It has taken 3 years just to get 90 members. People are so apathetic. You can't
see
convince
this is my
them.
whole point, though, with this thing. What was JFK's, everybody knows what his biggest statement was. It was a real simple sentence. Ask not what your country can do for you. We're not running this country anymore because we've given up, because we expect them to do all these things for us. Meanwhile, they play the money game against us because we don't think we're powerful enough not to go out and buy something or make a decision with our own money. Or we look at Joe Blow down the street and say, well, he's going to do it anyway, so who cares, right? That's the problem.
Well, and the problem
I think
is
you have to blame
Johnson
and the Great Society.
I'm sorry.
Even when you have enough power, you think you have enough power and you get a good movement going, you still get shut down because you don't have any power.
I believe in the people, man.
There's something here I want to bring up about what we do as paranormal researchers and as paranormal emergency folk. And it has to do with how many people have gone out into the field. Somebody's having a problem with a negative entity, and that entity is telling them that they have no power.
Yeah.
That no matter what they do, they're still going to be screwed. They're going to be effed, no matter what it is. And I think what we're looking at is a macrocosm of that sort of evil that is convincing people it doesn't matter what you do, you still are not going to have any power. We have, or the system has, or those that have, or those that control things have more power than you. And what is it that we do when we see this in the microcosm? We fight it, right? We go in and we fight it. So I don't know. The question is, how do we do it with a macrocosm? How do we do it with a bigger group? Because that's what we're doing on the small scale, in my opinion.
And Mark and I were just talking about that tonight. It's going to take a revolution.
Yeah, but trying to get people to lay their iPhones down long enough to do a revolution. We have taken freedom and, curse Lyndon B. Johnson, whether he had anything to do with Kennedy being assassinated or not. His whole welfare state template that he started, the Great Society, ruined this country. If you take the kind of Democrat that JFK was, it was a have pride in your country, be part of the solution. His philosophy is in neither party now.
Yeah, they killed him
grab
for
what
it.
you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's my whole point. Just that's what we got to get back to. And just throwing that away, we're defeated already by believing these things. Even if it's, let's just say it's the truth. Let's say what you guys are saying is true. That there is no way that we'll ever come out of this, ever. I'm sorry. Even if that's true, I'm not laying down. Can't.
Oh, I'm not either. But my question is how do you make it happen?
The only way we can do it is a revolution or vote with our money.
Exactly.
Either or. That's it.
The thing of it is that, even is like the example I gave, we're trying. We're not laying down. We're giving it hell. But we're getting nowhere, and we can't get anybody to come along with us.
You're getting frustrated, yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating as hell.
It's just trying to get past the apathy and the inertia. People don't care what's going on. They just want to know when they go to the big box store, they can get their salmon cheap. Or, the convenience of not having to go out, catch it themselves, and, for the most part, just being able to store-buy this stuff. They don't care what's behind it.
Yeah, I want to say it isn't cheap there.
No.
Yeah, and what Corey's not mentioning too is it goes beyond fish. It goes to water rights. You can't dig a well if you buy property up here because the Native Americans own all the water rights as well. Because again, getting back to fish, if you dig a well, then it's going to affect the river flow. It's going to affect how much water is in the river, and it goes back to fish. Everything points back to fish. But does really digging a well affect the fish? No, it does not. But again, the Native Americans have more power than we do against when it comes to the government. The government will not listen when it comes to Native American rights.
How much of that do you think is payback?
Well, I don't want to get into it, guys. I'm just going to preface this right now. I don't want to get into the First Nations debate tonight, okay? Because that's a whole different thing, and that's going to take us down a whole different ball game on a political side, which this show isn't about. So I gotta put the gavel down on that one, guys. I do apologize.
No need to apologize. All good.
All right, let's get to Coop. You need your first question out of the box.
You know what? And it's funny because we're going down that trail. I have nothing to do with Native Americans, but one of my questions is, where do you see the globalization plan in 10 years? Where do you see the government in 10 years? The way we're going. And none of us talk, bear in mind, but tonight it seems a lot of our questions are kind of going down the same trail. Where do you see the state of the world with the way our governments are running in 10 years?
You know what? I think the funny part about it is how connected the governments are, and how it's just a big game in regards to everything. I mean, let's face it. I mean, you go back 20, 30 years to even when the Apollo missions were going on with NASA, they were still working with the Russians. It wasn't a race, as everybody said it was. Everybody has been working together behind the scenes. So, I mean, here they are with these facades of we need to send people into Syria or Iraq or whatever. I don't see anything changing within the next decade because they have too much control on what everybody is doing.
Agreed. Completely agreed. It goes to the World Bank and it goes to corporations. I was just watching a video last night, as a matter of fact, about Monsanto. Monsanto is selling all their seeds, their GMO manipulated seeds, to India.
Yep.
So, India, they have to buy these seeds. Now, if they take the seeds from their crop and they try to plant them the next year, two things happen. Either one, they get sued for royalties by Monsanto because those are Monsanto seeds, or two, there's a DNA manipulation, genetic manipulation in the seeds that makes them sterile so they won't grow. So you have about half the farmers in India have committed suicide because, they can't plant, they can't farm anymore, And here you go, Monsanto is manipulating the U.S. government, India, and, everywhere in the world, and then you wonder why there's starvation in the whole, in the globe. Because corporations like Monsanto, one of them, are manipulating the world. So how do you defeat that?
Look, there is no real government left anymore. The fact of the matter is the rich corporations, they don't own this country, they own this world. It has become that bad now. Your rich corporations are running everything, and the governments are just playing pander to it because money in the hand. It's all about the money.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, it's more than that. Monsanto, in 10 years, I was thinking as he asked the question, I said, in 10 years, Monsanto is going to own everyone and everything because they will have so completely taken over our food sources all over the world. Sorry, Eric. You hadn't even started talking about him, and I went, 10 years from now, we are so in trouble with the Monsanto situation. And that's where we really need a revolution. That's where we need the Monkey Wrench Gang. We need someone to go in and hack them. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but we need...
Yeah, I'd be careful with that.
Yeah, I know, but we do need that. Even if it's even just the idea of doing something about that, because our government in the United States has completely sold out. And it didn't matter if it was Obama, it was going to be Clinton, it was whoever was before, completely sold out to them. And so we're in trouble in 10 years.
Well, Mexico just revoked Monsanto's permit to market their soy stuff to them. There are people fighting back, even whole countries. It's just Mexico is not really that big of a power.
No, but I think education is one key. I think a lot of people don't understand there are things they can boycott. Dole, for example, and Bayer, for example. If you don't buy Bayer, if you got half of the world population to understand that there's certain companies that are backed with Monsanto, Bayer and Dole, for two of them. You start pinpointing the companies that are backed by Monsanto, and you stop buying those products, you're going to make an influence.
Yeah, and I think that's when we say that we don't have power. The reason there's a big, they're saying it's paperwork and stuff in Mexico, but really there's a lot of people in Mexico speaking out against that country. Their politicians are a little bit more influenced by their people than we are, and it works for them there, even though they're not a big power. We just got to shift the power here somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Mexico can do it. Why can't we?
Well, that's the key, somehow.
Well, Europe actually doesn't allow GMOs, or it hasn't, but, they're going to work on Europe. So, that's a problem. But if you go to Europe, the food actually tastes a lot different because there are no GMOs.
Organic.
Yeah, it's organic. There are no GMOs. Food. It's good.
Guys, we only have about 3.5 minutes left before we got to go to our first break of the night. I want to quickly sneak in one more question here, and if we got to carry over the answers, we can. So let's go to Liz's question here.
Well, I made the mistake. You said we weren't going to do any fake news, and one of the things that came up, and this was yesterday at dinner, Thanksgiving dinner. I was hanging out with Bob Fenstermaker, who is a local conspiracy theorist, and he said, "Hey, look, the U.S. government went in and they bombed the CIA poppy processing facilities in Afghanistan." And I went, were CIA, poppy field, processing facilities? And we got into a question about our government, and it's when we have these wars overseas, the U.S. government supporting drug dealers, And then also the spiritual toll of that, which is that people get hooked and they don't necessarily, then they're disempowered because they're not doing anything. They're just hooked on drugs. So my question was, hey, what do you think? Was this real news? And you said, don't talk about any fake news. So that's my question is, what do you think about the U.S. going in and bombing the poppy processing facilities, the opium processing facilities in Afghanistan? It's both political and it's kind of fake, but it did actually happen. Anybody?
I think it's very possible, because I'm going to tell you straight up that I personally know soldiers that were in Cuba that were actually told by their higher-ups, you do not see these airplanes over here. Just look the other way. And you know, you're going to lose rank if you even look at those planes. Well, those planes were actually being loaded up with drugs from Cuba to bring back to the United States. So are we blowing up CIA's poppy plants in Afghanistan? Highly probable. Maybe not fake news.
It's hard to know, man, when stuff like that happens overseas, because it could be anybody doing that. That really, I mean, when they said Assad was bombing his own people after he was already winning a war against the rebels, it was hard for me to believe that. That could have been somebody else throwing those bombs so we could attack Assad, but I guess you got to keep your eye on it pretty hard before you can know anything.
Absolutely, guys. Is Markham alive? Do we know? Preach.
Yeah, Markham's alive.
Oh, good. You want to quickly fill in on this? We got about 30 seconds.
When anything happens outside of our immediate vicinity, it's awful hard to figure out if it's true or not. I'm wondering if the CIA wasn't bombing the competition's poppy fields. Be more my take on it is some of those Afghan warlords that are into the poppy, the opium business, might not be wanting to cut in, could give the CIA their share.
And on that note, guys, I'm going to get you all to hold on here as we are going into hour number 2 of the final Friday of the month, which means it's the SOR Paranormal Roundtable. Tonight we are joined by Elizabeth Anglin from Cosmic Passport, Joe Roop from Lighting the Void. From S4 and Forest Moon Paranormal, we have Corey Rees and Eric Cooper, the founder, and Spaced Out Radio's resident scientist, Eric Markham, the preacher, on as well. We'll get to more questions and more topics of the month right after this on SOR.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruse, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Forecop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Want a place to share your experiences without feeling judged? We have the place for you. If you've experienced sightings or contact with ETs, ghosts, cryptids, or UFOs, and you'd like someone to confidentially look into the matter, just fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our goal is to help you get the answers you need to the experiences you've had with our professional team of researchers. Your information stays 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines report. Fill out your experience today only at spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Dave Cruz is back for Spaced Out Saturdays, and then on Sunday, Elizabeth Anglin joins us for Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Sundays. It's going to be a great weekend of shows indeed. I hope you tune on in to spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on KTLK, TheFringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hercotectonic. Hercotectonic is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, try us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with us during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. We're also having a live chat in Facebook land on the SOR Space Travelers group, so you can sign up for that. You can also follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. We have a brand new YouTube channel called Spaced Out Radio. No longer Spaced Out Radio Show. We are moving our archives over, so make sure you check that on out and subscribe to our new channel. Unsubscribe from the old one. We are also on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora, yes, a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Watch great videos from UFO seekers and Contact TV. And you can also read up on our latest news that we put on every day called The Encounter Online. Check it out today, everything at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight, it's the SOR Paranormal Roundtable. It happens the final Friday of every month, and we are joined from S4, Eric Cooper, and Corey Rees, our resident scientist, Eric Markham, from Lighting the Void, Joe Roop, and Elizabeth Anglin from Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Sundays. Everyone, welcome up back.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks for having
me, Dave.
Now, Corey, we're going to get to your first question of the night. There we go. Fire it up.
All right. So I'm going to go back to DeLong here a little bit. And the question I had, which was kind of not really touched on the first question, which that works well, is how much of a detriment to the field is DeLong? I pass it on out to you.
Can I laugh?
I think it's going to be a mockery of the UFO field in general. Like things can't get any worse.
Yeah, he's not even in the field. He's over in another field that's pretending to be this field, and so it's like,
But because he's using the term ufology, it puts him in this field, even though he doesn't know a darn thing about it.
Exactly.
I think it's going to be a huge detriment to any of the good peacekeeping aliens out there, because I've got this funny feeling that the agenda is to scare everybody about UFOs. So if they ever do show up, then blasting them out of the sky is going to be justifiable. I think
that's back to the 1950s. Shoot them down, see if they're friendly.
If you read his books, man, it's all fear. It's nothing but fear of aliens.
Shoot first, ask questions later.
Well, then again, nobody ever went broke pandering to the lowest common denominator. The same kind of people that are going to buy that are the same kind of people that freaked out during Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. He's playing, it's a new tune, but the music's the same. He's found his crowd to play to. Well, yeah, it's just P.T. Barnum. It's William Randolph Hearst and yellow journalism. If you find a niche of people that won't grow up, or, they're emotionally stunted or sociologically stunted, hey, you can fearmonger to them all day long and make a lot of money doing it.
Yeah, but Jen, here's the thing: is that perception is everything. In this world that we live in now, perception is 90%. And the problem is that every time, in my opinion, that we make some strides in the direction that we want to go into in the paranormal field, we get somebody who comes along, like this guy, who just puts a black eye to it. And the problem is that he is so large and out there in front of the face because he was a rock star and so on and so forth, that this is what the masses are looking at. This is not what the field is looking at. The field is looking at this going, oh, crap, here we go again. But the masses are looking at this guy, and this guy is the perception. That's the black eye. That is the black eye.
That's like, we used to get so excited back in the John Mack days when somebody wanted to come in and do a movie, because we're like, it's going to get the word out there. And I remember sitting in a support group, and Tracy Torme came, and he was going to do a movie. He was not listening to any of us about what we were talking about. He was going to make it about the victimization. He wasn't going to make it about consciousness. He wasn't going to make it about the mind expandingness. Yes, the victimization is real, but he refused to listen to both the good and the bad. And it was like, and you could see it. It's like, I knew when I was sitting next to him, I could tell just from sitting next to him, he's going to do the same old thing that's always been done. This is scary and aliens are bad. Just like in Independence Day, which is a movie that John Mack did do work on. He gave them all sorts of information, and they made those aliens scary and bad. And it is, you're right, it's the same thing over again, and it's just,
I don't think Tom is good for the field in a lot of ways, but I think he has brought some international attention to it because of his publicity through his music, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think he is waking up a lot more people to the fact that UFOs are real. However, I think there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And like I said to Grant last night, and if you heard last night's episode, you heard him talking about the fact that, there were ufologists out there that apparently DeLong asked to be a part of this program. Some of the big names we would all recognize, including Grant Cameron or Stephen Bassett or Richard Dolan, Stanton Friedman, just to name a few, and they all refused to join him in this project. They really did, because they all thought with the players he had in from Jim Semivan on down that this was a bought-off crew, and they had an agenda. And
wise decision.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And to me, I'm a big fan of Grant Cameron. I've went on the show and I've gone on record saying I think he is the best journalist and researcher in this field going right now. And I don't think there is anyone comparable or who can draw a line down the middle like he can between, reality and the science fiction of it all, because there is a mixture of it. But I do believe that DeLong has, he's drank the Kool-Aid. And I do not believe that the message he is trying to spin is very accurate. I believe it's full of half-truths and things that he doesn't fully understand, although he's been told that that's the way it is, and that's what he's buying into, and that's what's dangerous to me.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And I want to give one quick example of that. Sorry, guys, to cut you off there. Okay, but I want to give one quick example. Let us remember this. If we buy into the fact that extraterrestrials have been coming here for centuries, not decades, this all didn't just start with Roswell. Okay? But let's say they've been coming here for centuries, if not millennia. There is no way in hell any alien species, if they have the brains and the capacity to travel light years to get here, that they're going to say, hey, let's wait until these dumb earthlings have weaponry capable of bringing us down in nuclear weapons. They would have taken us over when the main weapon was a bow and arrow and a spear. That's it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So there's only one thing that I disagree with, and what you've said, Dave, and is that there is good coming from what he's doing. And I'll give my example here, is that, I used to think that there was good that came from Paranormal TV, that, it brought it out, it made it more open, brought people to open up to it. But the problem is that if you bring that awareness in a bad way, which we see here, then that's what those masses that are waking up look at and think, and it still becomes a bad situation. There's nothing good coming of it.
Well, people need to stop and think, to start with, that if they can get here and do the things that they can do, our nukes don't mean anything. I mean, I think they've proven more than one occasion that they can manipulate our silos. They can shut them down. And I think over in Russia, supposedly, they turned them all on to scare the crap out of everybody. So there's no, this like the Independence Day where we're fighting them off valiantly. Yeah, right. That ain't going to happen.
Mm-mm.
Like our Keith Andrews says, if the fight came up, it'd be over before we knew it had started.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. We're going to move on here to my second question of the night, and this goes back to earlier this week where I had a couple of Canadian ufologists, Rosendale Mugford, on the show, where they are just getting into the UFO field and learning, and they did an incredible documentary series called The Encounter, which can be found on Vimeo if you would like to view it, and I highly suggest you do. It's really good footage from a couple of very, what I think are going to be very credible people if they continue doing this work in this field. Anyways, during their filming, they interviewed people like Nick Pope, Richard Dolan, Stanton Friedman, and a number of other of the big-named people in here. And everybody flocks to them. It doesn't matter if you're into ufology, if you're into Bigfoot, if you're into ghosts. Everybody always wants the big name if you have a radio show, if you have a documentary series or something along those lines, because in reality, those names do bring a little bit of credibility, number one, or a lot of credibility, number one. And number two, they also bring viewers and listeners, which I get. But I know from polling many people on our audience here, and I do it very often, I always talk to our listeners privately, and I'll say, hey, what do you like, what don't you like? And they will tell me. And the one thing that I've noticed is a lot of our listeners are tired of the same messages from the same people because they're on the same documentaries, so on and so forth. Yep. So, Joe, I'm going to start with you on this one. What is the biggest mistake you feel that new filmmakers, radio show hosts, authors are making getting into this field?
Well, I was going to keep this for my own selfish reasons, but I'll go ahead and say it. We can go back to the days when all this broke out during the Art Bell times, and the biggest mistake is we're not being journalists enough. We're not looking for the scoop. You see, these people that are big, they scooped something, and they got big, and they blew up really big. They scooped a story, or they had a really good way of telling it. And, as a journalist, that's what you got to look for. If you're just worried about getting listeners or getting an audience, they're perfect. But you can get just as many listeners and audiences if you're the first one to break that open. And I think that's what we need to do more. There's plenty of people out there that are doing great work, like you're talking about, Tim Doyle. I mean, if whoever's listening, you listening right now, wherever you are, if you haven't looked at Tim Doyle's work, you're missing out, And so that's what I think. I think people just want to hear them talk instead of, as far as hosts go, instead of trying to get the scoop, instead of digging for the news story. That's what we're supposed to do as journalists and broadcasters.
I agree with Joe. I think that in that field, too many of the journalists have gone to just doing that. They want to go out and they want to hit the big names. They want to get all of the audience stuff in and all that thing. And lots of people do like to hear what I'll say is the classics. There's nothing new to it, but they're great stories and it's a lot of good history. But he's right. Getting that new, fresh person with that opening story, that busted wide open story. That's what's needed. Definitely what's needed.
Liz, what do you think? What's the biggest mistake you see people making?
I'm actually going to go with something different. I agree with Joe and I agree with what Corey just said, but I'm going to go with ego because you were talking last night with Grant about massive egos being used by the government, but there is a kind of club to all of this, and in that club, there is some ego involved, and I've hit up against it because, hey, I was an experiencer who was in the closet for a really, really long time, and I'd go to all sorts of events, and I did research, and I've had more documentation on my stuff than anybody out there who has saying they have the most documentation. So I'm not the one who's claiming these major things that they're claiming. But then when I come up against them, like even if I've contacted people to invite them on my show, I will run up against this ego of, well, I'm so-and-so.
Yeah, that is true.
And don't you know? Like, I had one person tell me what experiencer meant, and I was in the group of people who coined the term. And I just said, you're not coming on my show. You know why? Because I don't need to be schooled on what this term needs since I'm one of the people who came up with it. And I didn't do it to be egotistical. But part of it is they're not letting people in, even if we've been around forever. And we've been in the shadows, we've been in the closet, we haven't been talking, and we know, crap tons more than they do. They're not letting people in because it's a club. And there's ego involved in being in that club. So, they say the same things over and over again, and they're pretty much sitting pretty because they're in a club. Well, guess what? We need a little revolution in the club. And we need to get some people in who haven't been talking because that's where the new stuff is. That Joe is talking about, we need something new. Yeah, we need somebody who's not in the club. We need a lot of people who aren't in the club coming forward and talking.
But isn't that club, though, so broken down these days? And what I mean by broken down is there are so many different aspects and side clubs now. So, for instance, if you look at Bigfoot, okay, you have the club in there that says it's a scientific creature that we need to study on whether or not it's real, whether it's Gigantopithecus or whatever. You have the people who believe it's interdimensional, and that's all they're believing. And then you have the Kiwani Lapsaritis group, which believes Sasquatch are people too. And they probably should be able to vote. Okay?
I wonder why that is.
So when you break down the groups, it's tough in order to get everybody together because every little aspect of this field has been broken into subcategories so much, Liz.
Yeah, but that's the club saying, "Oh no, people in your club can't come over to my club." I mean, that's just this tendency, that human beings have to separate like oil and water. Oh, your club believes this. Oh, we're not going to talk to you. It's just like, wanting to get scientists to come in. And I would love to have scientists come on and talk with Keith and I about alien tech that we've seen. Oh, no, we can't do that. Because why? Because you guys are nuts. But that's not the, it's just, it's not the case,
Is that really, I know I hope I don't sound too stupid here, but is that really going on? Where someone's so quick to,
yes.
I'm new on Bigfoot. I don't know if Bigfoot's interdimensional, if they're alien, if they're all of the above, but I'm definitely not trying to narrow it down really fast,
Well,
it goes on constantly.
Absolutely
it goes on
it does.
all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Preacher, what do you feel? you've been around here for a couple of years now. What do you think is the biggest mistake new people, whether they're filmmakers, radio show hosts, authors, documentarians, whatever, what is the biggest mistake they are making in this field?
Staying in the rut. They're not looking for the new voices. They're looking for the Stanton Friedman quote. They're looking for the Jason Martell. Well, Jason's kind of the new generation, but I mean, they're just not willing to take a chance on the new voices. They're going with the tried and true, and that's just, it's making for some boring, really boring UFO specials and documentaries because it's the same old story, and they just keep telling it.
Preacher, I get that, and I can understand that, but I can see where they're doing it because they want to make a name for themselves. But is it, I'm going to turn the tides here for a second, is it this field's fault for allowing that to happen because there is no real second generation of ufologists or ghost hunters or crypto people, less so in the paranormal, but especially in the UFO field, there really isn't anybody to take the lead in that next generation. There's nobody replacing the late Jim Mars who just passed away in August. You know what I'm saying? Yes, there's a couple, okay, but Martell and the hair guy, I forget his name, Giorgio Tsoukalos. Okay, yeah. Okay, they're in their 40s, but they've already got their angle of ancient aliens. Okay, yes, you have maybe Jeremy Corbell, but the rest, that's it. There is nobody in their 30s, 20s, 30s, or 40s who are stepping up to the plate to take over that research from the guys in their 50s, 60s, 70s, starting with Nick Redfern and working their way on up.
Is there nobody, or are they just not getting? Are they just not getting the coverage?
Maybe we're not finding.
The new guys just aren't vocal enough.
Yeah, there's a couple new guys. There's what's his name, Jason, and then I can't remember. Not a ghost hunter, Jason. It's more of a UFO guy. And then there's some new guys, but they're not very vocal, and they're rehashing old stuff.
I think that's the problem. There hasn't been anything out there. There hasn't been a Roswell. There hasn't been an Aztec. Nothing has really happened that earth-shaking. Since the old days, what we call the old days, I think we need a modern-day event or a good flap, a Phoenix Lights flap, something that, everybody, even me, as much as I hate cell phones, I can take a movie with my cell phone. I mean, we need something big to come along and get a bunch of people to witness it, like the Hudson River Valley flap. Something come along, and that's going to generate our next. So far, I think the problem is nothing has come along to generate a new generation of UFO people.
I think that there has been. I think there's two factors that are causing it not to happen. I think one is a little bit of apathy, for one, and the second is that I agree. I don't think they're getting the publicity. You got so many of the journalistic groups and people that are still trying to get the Stanton Friedmans and everybody else on instead of looking for these new people who have those bits of proof that they're not getting any coverage. I think there's probably plenty. Yeah, I think there's probably plenty of people out there that are probably taking up that torch, but they aren't getting any play. None.
Well, let me flip this around real quick. Okay, how badly is YouTube and the fact that you can make a guy down in his basement can make footage that looks better than the original Star Wars movies
hurting it a lot
on his laptop?
Yeah, because that's hurting it a lot because they get washed in with all that. In the first place they go to when they want to put out what they found or discoveries, they go to YouTube, and it gets labeled fake so fast that it's not like it used to be.
Yes, but for good reason. There's a lot of guys out there who haven't had the balls, and I have no problem saying that, to they're putting everything on their channel. So it doesn't matter whether you're Secure Team 10 or Open Minds or whoever, okay? They aren't breaking it down. They're like, well, we got this interesting photo or video of a UFO, and you can tell it's CGI. You know, you can absolutely tell it's CGI. You know, it's just a matter of they are putting it on there. They're not editing. That's why I like what Tim Doyle is doing with UFO Seekers, okay? Tim isn't afraid to be the jerk. He isn't afraid to be the a-hole, you know, in order to get the story right. You know, and I'm not just saying that because he comes on here once a month, okay? I mean, love or hate the guy. The fact is, if you go to his channel and watch his videos, and there's a reason why his videos are getting hundreds of thousands of downloads.
His work is awesome.
Is the fact that he is sitting there saying, look, we don't know what this is. This is what we have been able to film. This is what other people are showing us. And that's how he is networking it and branding it out. I don't think that the reason why we see too many people out there taking on this topic, guys, is because maybe they don't want us to. They're waiting for that Linda Moulton Howes, the Whitley Strebers, the Stanton Friedmans, the Paul Helliers to die off. Because a lot of them, no word of a lie, and I'm not saying this to be disrespectful, a lot of them already have one foot in the grave because of the age they are. Right? Cooper, what do you think?
No, I'm just listening. I completely agree. I think as far as the journalist side goes, you need to get, if you want a balanced documentary, sure, get a couple of the big names. But you also want to throw the experiencer in there. Now, bearing in mind, you know, use your own common sense, use your own research, and see what because, you know, we all know the patterns of abduction of UFOs, and so you know what to look for. Because there are a lot of site cases out there that nothing happened. But get some experiencers on there, along with the big names. Maybe one or two big names, not all of them. You know, because I completely agree. They're overplayed. They're on every documentary you see. But you need to hear more people that are experiencing things. That's where you want to get good journalistic balance. You've got it right, Dave, because you do have experiences that come on here.
Well, let me get to the next question as we move on here. And Coop, let's stick with you on this. What's your second question of the night?
My second question, I'm kind of going with the theme we had with the government before, because I've been watching videos. I've been trying to do more research and more get some fresh information and whatnot. But who's heard of fusion centers? We're going to go off on the direction of FEMA camps and fusion centers. Fusion centers are these intelligence centers all across America where all the intelligence agencies are gathering their information, and that's where the watch lists come in. And is it conspiracy or is it true? And along with that, do you think that's where we're headed with all the radicalization you see going on? Or,
yes. Oh.
No, go ahead. So,
yes
FEMA
and
camps,
yes.
you know?
Fusion centers, yes. FEMA camps, I'm not so sure about, but fusion centers, oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
Because you know, if you look at the hype, if you look at you know, is it fear mongering or is this stuff really going on? Am I on a watch list for being a veteran as well as a conspiracy theorist? And if I was really on a watch list, do you think they'd let me take a Homeland Security course and getting more information? That's kind of where I walk that line. I kind of look at both sides and go, because I would think my professor, or all four of my professors in this Homeland Security program, having been Homeland Security, you know, and they're of the exact same mindset as all of us are.
But aren't fusion centers only run by the state? Aren't they state-run?
They're state-run, and that's the scary part. The federal government, there is nobody that is controlling them. They are completely independent. If they think you're a radical, they're going to snatch you up and throw you in there. And, you know, there's no federal government oversight.
See, I'm more scared of the federal oversight, to be honest with you.
Right.
Yeah. I
They
thought you were
depend
saying
on-
something else about fusion centers. I mean, fusion centers, I've seen the buildings, like just driving, when I go on vacation, all of a sudden I'll see a building and it's like, wait a minute, that's it's an unmarked building, really high fences, and it's just, that's an intelligence gathering facility.
You can call them though. Has anybody called one just to feel it out? You can call them and see what's up.
So Jesse Ventura actually went up to one.
Oh, okay.
And the doors were locked. They actually had to come out and talk to him. We're talking concertina wire up top that was facing inside. It was an actual fusion center. And they wouldn't answer him. He actually went to a congressman and asked him, what the hell is this? And this congressman was nervous. You could see the sweat pouring off him because he asked him, what's HR 641, and why do you talk about fusion centers in this document that you signed? And so this congressman's going, I don't know anything about fusion. Your name's on it. So there's a lot more stuff going on that a lot of people, and again, I think it comes to education. If half the Americans knew half the stuff that was going on, that you can see this building in the middle of your city, and it looks like a concentration camp because there's barbed wire facing inward. That tells you right there it's to keep people in, not out. So what do you think we are intending?
These fusion centers, they may be quote unquote state run, but if I was a betting man, I would say that the federal government has a hand in it because most of the states, now there's a few we can have an exception with, most of these states don't have the kind of money to put these things together and run them.
Well, that's the thing. There's here lately with those things, there's been more private sectors getting involved with it, which don't make sense either,
No, not at all. Lockheed Martin, DARPA, how many of them are involved?
Why are they involved with them all of a sudden?
Well, Lockheed Martin is so deeply in everything. When I was in nuclear engineering, we used to have to go to courses set up by Lockheed Martin, and you never saw so many bored professors in your life going through this corporate BS because Lockheed Martin said we had to do it. It was like, why are we doing this? It's great, but they're everywhere. Bechtel and Lockheed Martin everywhere. DOD, DOE, craziness.
You know what I think they are? When they made that Patriot Act law, right? Then they were like, well, we're going to take as many rights away from them as we can. And just as soon as we do that, then we're going to try to, mandate the internet or whatever. And then we're going to set up these little bases all around the United States so we can cover up what we're doing and we can get there fast. And no one has to know. And none of them are going to be alike. So they'll never be able to know what's really going on. They are pretty suspicious.
Yeah.
Okay, if these companies are involved, the government's involved too. Because these companies and the federal government go hand in hand. I don't care how you look at it, they do.
Yeah. I thought it was Homeland Security, which is federal, not state. I thought fusion centers were Homeland Security and private contractor. Am I wrong about that, Eric?
Homeland Security is federal.
Right.
But they're state run, though. That's what's weird about it.
It is. Now, where they, again, there's so many different factions that are involved with DHS that who's to say? And here's what's funny. Out of all the Department of Homeland Security agencies that are within DHS, the FBI is not.
Really crazy topic you bring up there, Cooper.
Crazy.
I mean, it's important. And we were talking about JFK, right? JFK, everything he spoke out against before he was killed, these fusion centers are doing.
Right.
I mean, it's everything is covet means, and no one knows anything about it, and it's 100% secrecy, and you can't. We don't know. It's scary. Nobody knows what they're doing. I think that's the scariest part of it all.
Well, and so getting back to the show that I was watching, there was a girl that was running. She was working with the Ron Paul administration as I don't know, someone that puts up Ron Paul signs, that kind of thing, just running his campaign. And she got threatened. She actually got arrested as a radical because she supported Ron Paul.
What?
So, yeah. I mean, they actually showed video documentation of it. So, getting back to, are you on a watch list? And why would you be on a watch list? Are you so dangerous that they got to put you on a watch list?
We all are now because you just talked about fusion centers. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
Anytime.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Let's get to Corey's second question of the night.
Okay, so I'm going to bring her back to the paranormal here a little bit. We have been seeing it, but I want to know, has anybody else been seeing it, where there is an increase or a rise in negative entities and or abductions? We've been seeing it plenty. We've been seeing it plenty in Forest Moon. We've seen a plenty of increase on it. It's quite incredible to us. So I'm curious if anybody else is seeing this.
Were you looking over my shoulder or something?
Probably.
That was about 30 questions. But anyway, I wrote 4 questions like I always do anyway. But yeah, you and I both know there's a huge rise in influx in malevolent entities and abduction cases. I want to hear the rest of the panel.
Yes. We've had people in this small town that are pretty much above board, very protective. There was a situation that happened where somebody almost died by wandering out into the desert because he was so beset by something or a couple of things that were very malevolent. And in that, I happened to be part of that process because I was asked to look for him by remote viewing. And what I came up with when he was finally found was he came and he explained how it was, how it was happening with him and the court, what corresponded with what I said. But the other thing is, right after that, just in the past weekend, I have had crazy people out in front of my shop, and just craziness, like extra protection flying everywhere. I don't have a reason for it. Does anybody know what the reason is? Because it's crazy, it's nutty, but it's big.
I think it has to do a lot with the amount of negativity, at least around here in this country alone. The negativity has increased tenfold just since, election time, really. I mean, we started getting so polarized, and, you can see it by just doing a quick scan of Facebook of how many people have disowned, unfriended, and blocked people simply because someone said, I don't like this person. It's just huge amounts of negativity.
Black Friday didn't help none.
No.
For any of you spiritualists out there too, you also know that everything comes in cycles and phases, and we're in the dying phase right now too. So there's a lot of, it gets darker sooner, and I don't want to get all into that, with my beliefs and stuff, but they tend to hang around a little bit more during these times.
Well, and that's the funny part, because, so many people think, oh, it's Halloween, and the veil gets thinner and all the activity increases. No, not really, because, you would think it'd be dying down by now, but no, it's actually increasing, and we're getting towards Yule.
Yeah.
People get seasonal depression a lot, too, during this time,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I know I'm glad I'm around some people, so when I say this, I won't sound too crazy, but we all know people's psyches affect the astral realm. So the more negativity you got, there's even people that are powerful enough that they're creating their own negative elementals, and then they're out, wreaking havoc on everybody else. So,
yeah,
just got to cheer people up, man.
Raise their vibrations.
Yeah.
which is part of what we do in the astral with our team.
I don't know if I have seen an increase in abductions or not from people whom I've talked to on the show. There does seem to be a degree of that happening, but I'm wondering if people are, if alien abduction all of a sudden is the demonology from 2 years ago, or the Mandela effect from earlier this year. You know what I'm saying? Like there always seems to be a trend in this field that people latch onto. So I'm not very convinced that the numbers are going up, as much as I'm wondering whether or not it's another trend, Eric, that people are jumping on the bandwagon with, that everything is becoming more demonic, everything is becoming more abusive with extraterrestrials, because this is a very trending field of research. And I've seen, in my almost 3 years, I've seen so many trends come and go through this field that I'm no longer sure anymore.
I have to say something about a demonology trend that seems to be coming from demons themselves that's been reported to me from Australia by Paul Hamden. And about 2 years ago, he started getting calls from people who thought they were being abducted, and he went in to go investigate, and what he was finding were demons were posing as aliens. And it was just a whole slew of demons posing as aliens. And I had never considered that before. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of that. Sorry, that's not really my question, but it dovetails in with this.
Well, I think another thing that you have to look at too is that, for the scientific field aliens, the ones that are doing it for the science of it, when you start getting some of the things that are going on like we've got going on right now, that's going to pique their curiosity. I wouldn't doubt it too much if there was a certain amount of increase.
Well, there is also a magical war going on right now between the guy that supposedly, did a binding ritual against Trump and all Trump's voters and pulled out the Tower Tarot card and invoked, infernal forces on anybody that supports Trump. And Trump, well, more than, let's just say half of our country voted for that guy. And this guy's out doing public binding rituals on them and trying to invoke demons. So that could be
But it went beyond that, Joey. There's a whole group of witches that were with him.
That's what I'm saying. He riled some stuff up. It
started a whole war, like you said. It was a whole group of witches. It hit all the pagan groups that I'm in. And I was like, oh, my gosh, here we go. Because now you're going to pull all the radicals out of, Trump's field to go after, start witch burnings and whatnot. But on top of that, then you had all these.
Hope not.
It's fun. Then you had all these fundamentalist Christian groups that started a prayer vigil against the witches that were, fighting. So yeah, you started a huge magical war between the two sides. But that happened back in February.
Yeah.
And
did you guys see a rise? Did you see a rise in entities then when that happened?
No, we didn't. No. But even last week, I got word that there were a couple of radicals that were trying to start up witch burnings here in Seattle. So you still kind of feel a repercussion from it, but not near like you did back in February.
All right, let's move on to the next topic, and let's get to Eric Markham's next question of the night.
All right. This goes out to everybody. We've kind of brushed on this several times, but how do you, panel, go about vetting the stories you read about? How do you eliminate fake news from what might be real news? And how do you keep your personal bias? Because, a lot of it, I think there's things you read that you want it to be true. How do you eliminate that?
I think it's very simple, and we've done a couple of shows on this. Amy Martin and I did a show on this past Monday in regards to fake news. I think there are a number of triggers people have to look for. For instance, the minute it says the government doesn't want you to read this, it's fake news. Okay, don't even click on it. Or Facebook, forward this and share this before Facebook removes it. Fake news.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Clickbait.
In other words, a sensationalist headline, like yellow journalism from the...
Exactly. National Enquirer type journalism there. The other thing that I will say that I have noticed is... if there are no sources, if you read the article and there are no sources except some unnamed person who was, the housekeeper of wherever heard noises coming from the basement, no, you didn't interview them. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And whether or not you believe the mainstream media, and that is up to everybody to make that decision, okay? But I'm going to tell you something right now, okay? Like this fake news story that came about last week that a Special Forces United States Marine Corps team had surrounded with helicopters and boots on the ground CIA headquarters at Langley. And they were about to go in, okay? Nowhere on the mainstream media was that story. And I'm telling you right now, if you think that the mainstream media is not going to cover a story of a military coup at your spy headquarters, okay, you need a shaking. Okay, you need a shaking like you see in the toy aisle of Walmart during Black Friday between two moms going after the same doll. You need to be shaking. Okay, It's ridiculous. And if you fall for that, it's your own fault. Because the one thing that I will say, and I don't want to, take up this topic. I could talk another 3 hours about it. Okay, but the one thing I will say, God, source, whatever you want to call it, gave you a thing called a brain. And the problem is we've become so aloof with mainstream media that we believe everything else now. The mainstream media is not going to drop the ball on a story like that. And that's all I got. We got about 4 minutes left, guys.
Look, even if the mainstream media, from our mainstream media, didn't pick it up, you guarantee that you would see something like that on either the BBC or Routers. A foreign mainstream. They'd have picked it up. The other thing... Yeah, the other thing that you look at, too, is when you see something that says, CNN or NBC says, the thing to do, instead of just go, oh, well, that must be true, go to that site. Because you're not going to pick up a story from some oddball news thing that says NBC says this and not find it on NBC's site. I'm sorry, you're just not going to.
There's enough super skeptics and debunkers out there that if you just do enough searching, you'll find out what's true and what's not. There's people that base their whole life on being a skeptic. That's what they focus their energy on. And I mean, they'll sniff that stuff out,
We all need to sniff it out.
You can get that fringe, weird source out there that will put the legitimate story in. They'll put a gem in there with the dross just to give themselves a hint of legitimacy. So, I mean, you really got to be careful.
The other thing is the spin. It's the spin on the story. You want to look for that because sometimes the story will start out and it'll have good, solid, real information, and then by the time you get to the end of it, whether or not this is mainstream media or someplace else, the spin on the story is the thing that's fake. So like we were talking about the poppy fields, the poppy processing centers being CIA centers. Well, they're Taliban centers, but my friend was convinced they were CIA centers, and that's why the government was attacking also Langley. Not really thinking it through, right? there was an attack on these processing centers, but what's the spin? Who actually owns them? And that's where you start to see the inconsistencies come through. That's all I have to say on that.
Anybody else want to range in on this topic? We've got about 2 minutes left, guys.
I just think you just need to go ahead. Yes.
If there were Marines attacking the CIA, just check Trump's Twitter feed.
But it goes beyond that, though. Does it say that because of this distrust, because the United States media has chosen either left or right sides politically, that it's made people gullible in searching for alternative news to find the truth?
Oh, I totally agree. Check the BBC. Look for outside sources that have nothing to gain.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is you got to use your gray matter. We're all born with a brain. Now, I get some people have higher IQs than others, but we're all should be smart enough to go, is that really true?
Take an IQ test first, right, Corey? Take an IQ test before you start looking at news, maybe.
Well, probably, but still, you should be able to look and say, does that look like it even makes any damn sense? And if it doesn't, you should be doing some research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just don't take the article that speaks to you. I could find an article that backs up what I believe, and without a little discernment, I'd be willing to go, pass that on.
That's called
and religion. Then find out it's wrong, just because it's what I thought, so it chimed in with my beliefs.
And I'm going to hold off on everybody right there, and I'm going to get the final word on this because we got to go to commercial. And Preacher, you hit the nail on the head right now. Right now, there are too many stories that predicate to so many different beliefs that's where the trouble is coming from. I mean, you take the wild animals. Trump goes to lift the ban on trophy hunting being imported into the United States. He literally didn't expect the numbers of people going and raging on that. He was going by the numbers he heard were that, take the animals. We're fine with that. Let alone he did not hear the fact that there's a lot of animals that are still disappearing, and maybe it's not a good idea. But that's nonetheless. And I will have a story coming up this weekend on another rhinoceros species that is extinct from Malaysia. Wasn't seen at all in 2017. Not to end the hour on a sad note, but you can find all your news like that on the Encounter Online. Just go to news@spacedoutradio.com and you'll find the stories there. We haven't posted that one yet, but it will be very soon. We're going to get to more of the panel here on the Friday night SOR Paranormal Roundtable. It happens the final Friday of each month. I'll be right back with more SOR right after this.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. It's the weekend time. I'm heading out to find my Zen and my Chi in the wilderness of British Columbia. So I'm turning over Spaced Out Radio headquarters to Dave Cruz tomorrow night with Spaced Out Saturdays, and Elizabeth Anglin with Spaced Out Sundays, Cosmic Passport. Each show starts at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us as well. We are also live on KTLK, The Fringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hercotectonic. Hercotectonic is your password for the night. Be sure to use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can find us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. We have a brand new YouTube channel. It's Spaced Out Radio. No longer Spaced Out Radio Show. So unsubscribe from the old one. Connect up with the new one. We would really appreciate that, because that's where all our archives are going. And you can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Join the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. You can also shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read The Encounter online with all of the weird and strange news that's going on, and watch great videos from guys like Tim Doyle and UFO Seekers, Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV, and so much more. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight, it's the final Friday of the month, which means it's time for the Paranormal Roundtable that we do every month to talk about the month that was. We are joined tonight by Eric Cooper from S4, along with Corey Rees. We have our resident scientist, Eric Markham. From Lighting the Void, Joe Roop, who will be taking over Spaced Out Saturdays as of December 2nd. And last but not least, Elizabeth Anglin from Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Sundays. Crew, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
All right.
That was great.
Liz, let's get to your second question of the night.
Sorry about that. My mute was on. So here is it. This is more in the entertainment, because this is new news for entertainment. There are groups of people who are doing virtual reality alien abduction shows or plays, and this has been made possible by a grant program called Alternate Realities Grant Program. So one of the ones that is just come out recently on November 14th is the Zeta Reticula incident, and it's about Betty and Barney Hill, and they are doing a virtual reality abduction for Betty and Barney Hill. Do you guys think this is a good trend, a bad trend,
Can I chime in on that right off the bat?
Yeah.
I think it's an exciting trend.
Yeah, that's cool.
However, if they are going to tell the real stories and not just get all CGI and start making up things that didn't happen, I think it could open up a lot of people to what is actually going on with true alien contact, both good and bad.
I agree. I'm right there with you. Joe?
I didn't know about this, so I'm really glad you brought this up, because as soon as you got halfway through talking about this, I think it's really cool, especially if they do what Dave's talking about. Like if you can tell the Travis Walton story, you know, like you're the logger out there and you see that fire thing and it zaps you, and then you wake up on a ship. Man, that's awesome. And that might actually wake up some of these people that you think that we're thinking that's apathetic to the whole thing. You know, they might stumble upon.
Well, I think the negative I see in it is the experiencer that doesn't know what's happened to them yet, and it sparks that side of them, and then all the memories flood back. Are they ready to handle that?
You think that's negative?
I do, because if an abductee, I'm the one who has to break to abductees sometimes if they are abductees. When a client comes to me and starts explaining what's going on in the paranormal to me, and they fit the pattern of an abductee, and I have to be the one to break down to them that you are fitting the pattern of an abductee. Tell me more about what's going on. Some of them can't handle that.
Huh.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm also wondering about the generation of false memories, people who all of a sudden begin to think they're an abductee. And I'm not going to say false memories aren't true, because it's been scientifically proven that people can form false memories. But would this cause false memory PTSD if somebody really made a hardcore, virtual reality?
Well, if somebody hasn't really experienced it, I don't see where a false memory would come in. Now, when you're talking hypnotherapy and that kind of thing, where they're actually planting the details in, I suppose on that note, it could, but I don't know. I think it's too new to tell right now.
I think we run a very real danger of... Remember the phenomenon of people that were just getting too overwhelmed by the movie Avatar?
Oh yeah.
Now,
I remember.
Now take that phenomenon and put it into the abduction experience. I think there's a real danger there for creating, a strange subculture. I don't think it's a good idea.
I think okay, let me explain something too. If you're there's something called immersion therapy, and I could equate that potentially with immersion therapy. Immersion therapy is where a psychiatrist or psychiatrist will take a PTSD soldier and they will have them relive their experience over and over and over again. Some soldiers snap. They can't handle immersion therapy. I could see this being somewhat similar with an already abductee.
So I'm much worried about creating abductees that weren't really abductees. They got caught. It's like the people that run around drinking blood because they think they're vampires, or they run around out in the field because they think they're vampires. We have these subcultures in existence already. Is this virtual reality not going to create another group of people who are escaping reality through this experience?
That would so make me upset, because the people who already do that annoy me to no end. When I find them, I'm like, oh no, stop.
So hey, I have another outlook on this, just a little bit. I think there's probably positives and negatives, as there is with anything that comes out that's tech and interesting. I think, again, like Dave said, if it's done right, historically truthful, I think it's a good learning tool. However, another thing that I was thinking about here as we're talking about this, what about those with past lives? past lives that were abducted. You know, is that they're going to go into this thing, you know, with no clue whatsoever. Oh, hey, look, isn't this neat? And then all of a sudden something come up and bite them from there. You know, causing a whole plethora of issues.
Nice word usage of the word plethora there. Very nice.
Thank you.
Everybody gets a drink now.
All right, let's get to... I'm trying to think here. Who hasn't asked their second question yet, guys?
I have.
Joe.
All right, Joe, let's get to yours.
Okay, real quick before I ask the question, I just wanted to say hello to everybody on TalkStream Live, and thanks for listening to Spaced Out Radio on the Fringe FM. We're up at number 5 right now, so we're on up there, Dave. So they must love you, brother.
Nice. We love it. We love it. Thank you for filling
Here's
us in.
Here's the thing. A man, I won't say his last name because I don't know if the reporters got it right, but his name's Mike. He's 61. He's a limo driver. This Saturday, he had planned to launch himself 1,800 feet in the air to prove that the Earth was flat. Now, he built a rocket by himself out of metal, and he made a steam rocket. I guess it's a steam engine rocket, and he built it out of scrap metal. And he's a huge NASCAR fan, by the way. And he's going to launch himself 1,800 feet in the air and take pictures to prove that the Earth is flat. As crazy as this sounds, the guy's really going to do it, but he ran into some type of federal hiccup, so he's going to have to move to a different location. My question is this flat Earth thing gotten so bad that maybe my actual question is, why are people willing to kill themselves to try to prove this? Because I don't think this guy's going to make it out of this experiment.
Darwin Award comes to mind.
Me too. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Well, the sad thing is, if his... Because let's face it, there's already an abundance of proof out there that the world is a globe. If this guy's launch takes place, he survives it, he gets his pictures, the devotees to the flat Earth are not going to believe his evidence. They're going to say he was bought off or, corrupted or, they're not going to accept it. Some of them wouldn't accept it if you took them up into space and showed them with their own naked eyes. They'd think they were in a... You're just not going to you can't convince people the truth if they don't want to be convinced.
Is 800 feet enough to do this with?
I don't think so.
1,800
depends
feet.
on where
Yeah,
you're
probably.
at. Yeah, because they've done it with high altitude balloons. I mean, you can actually, on a clear day, if you're on a jetliner, you can see the curvature of the Earth. If you're if you're at sea level on an aircraft carrier out in the middle of the Atlantic, you can see the curvature of the Earth at the horizon. So, I mean, it's,
Am I missing something here is what I'm saying with this flat Earth thing. I mean...
Well, he's religious. I mean, the ironic thing, the funny thing about the Darwin Award is that this is somebody, the flat earthers believe that we are saying the earth is round because we don't believe in God. And that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of scientists who believe in a creator and a God and that, this couldn't possibly be a mistake. What we're dealing with here and how everything's working. But, these are people who believe that if you believe the earth is round, you don't believe in God. So Darwin Award is
right.
good.
Yeah, they're zealots. And, you just can't convince a zealot that they're wrong. They're willing to die for to prove that they're right.
You can call me a dark person, but I find a little humor in the fact that this guy's going to rocket himself 1,800 feet in the air. He's going to take some pictures. He's going to fall to the ground, go splat, and if anybody does find his pictures, it's just going to prove that he was wrong.
Well, he even admitted he knows nothing. He don't know much about rocket science, and he's even got a sponsor on the side of his rocket, www.whatever. I'm not going to give him credit, but he's gone to some pretty good extents. And I can say this, to redneck a ship. I can say it because I'm a redneck, but he rednecked this thing, and he's going to do it. But I don't think he's going to
I
survive.
hope he's success. I hope he does. Honest to God, I hope he does. I just, it's just because of nothing else, for the sheer absurdity of it. It would just be great to see something that crazy, that offbeat, that just hilarious go off without a hitch. It would be fantastic. Yeah, I'm actually cheering for him.
You are
Dave, you don't
dark,
wanna talk
dark
about this,
soul. Eric,
Not worth your time.
you're a dark
Eric also watches children crying videos on YouTube after they've hurt themselves just to feed that dark, dark soul. That's what he does.
I film them. I make them cry so that I can film them.
All right.
While we're making absurd stuff up.
All right, we're moving
That's
on to the
all for them.
third round of questions here. My third question of the night involves things like Ouija boards and secret societies. We did, in the last few weeks, shows on both of those. So my question is, okay, whether or not your personal belief is towards secret societies or Ouija boards or things along those ilk, have we, as a paranormal society, worked ourselves up so much over the legends and the lore that have been created around these types of product or societies that we have forgotten what could possibly be the truth behind what they are about?
Well, I think movies help with that, and fear-mongering and everything else. It goes to, oh God, what's the word I'm thinking? We're on the last hour. My brain's starting to slow down. Global consciousness. There we go. So you have global consciousness that you watch enough movies about Ouija boards, for example, that everyone thinks they're demonic, they're evil, whatnot, and you make them evil.
Yeah, you form a paradigm. That's back in I think it was the late 40s, early 50s when the first, Ouija boards had been around, or spirit boards had been around before, but when they were first commercialized, they were one of the most popular games out there.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't considered evil. They weren't considered evil until after the movie The Exorcist, because that is the way that the little girl, Reagan, brought the devil into her through a character named Captain Howdy through the Ouija board.
That's true.
And there really wasn't any case of that. And the original case that The Exorcist was, supposedly based on, it had nothing to do with Ouija boards. It was just a nice plot element.
Look, I'll state that I've always stayed with Ouija boards and, those type of things. They're tools. Just like anything else, you get all this hype and stuff that makes them so bad, but they themselves are not bad. It's how they're used. The hype is what creates the use that creates the bad. They're a tool like anything else. If I told you to walk over to the shelf and grab that chainsaw and go out and cut down a tree, the chances of you falling a tree on your head or cutting off your leg are pretty high if you don't know what you're doing. Same thing with a Ouija board. You go out there and use it, and you have no idea how to open it, close it, or who the heck you may be talking to, you may have a serious problem on your hands.
Yeah.
Well, one thing to remember is when the first Ouija board was commercially released, they actually had to prove to get a patent. They had to prove that the thing worked. So somewhere along the line, there was actually a demonstration in front of a patent official that was apparently successful because they were given the patent.
Well, it's not just so much Ouija boards, guys, but even secret societies. Okay, I know a number of people whom I've met over the last couple of years who are part of, the Masons. I see nothing evil with them. I see nothing bad about them. But the minute I know, before I met these people and found out they were Masons, my idea of the Masons was that this is an evil satanic group that does things behind closed doors, whether it's sexual abuse rituals, whether it's satanic rituals, whatever it may be. I fell into that gullibility. Now I'm wondering, is it the reputation that these societies and things like the Ouija board have been given that in reality, it's the same thing. I guess where I'm going with this, guys, it's the same thing that we learned in elementary school, that when the first child in line tells the second child in line a story, by the time it gets to the 30th kid in line, the story is completely different.
Yeah, there's the big problem with that, too, is tribe mentality. You know, you just got through saying that, you know, you believe that until you started talking to some Masons or whatever. You never really took the time to research the Masons or study their books or anything like that, maybe because you didn't care about it or it wasn't that big deal with you. So it's a lot easier to go along with the tribe at that point until it was important to you.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I also think, you know, Ouija boards overall aren't bad, but there are a couple incidences where there have been bad incidents. Just like, you know, secret societies. Secret societies overall might not be bad, but you do have some bad apples in them that, you know, taint the whole batch.
Yep.
And so, you know, society being what it is, they're not going to look at the positive. They're going to look at the negative. You could do 11 billion things good. One negative will completely, you know, change people's perception of you.
Look what Crowley did to anybody that wants to be an occultist. Just saying the word occultist right now sounds bad. I guarantee if I say that word occultist, Crowley's pops in their head, you know, because of the stuff he did. But that's not the whole, you know, that doesn't make up the whole of occult study.
Well, after I read the book about him being a spy, and we interviewed the professor that wrote that book, so much of what Crowley was up to me, sounds like it was more cover, you know.
Disinfo is what it was.
Yeah, just sort of like, okay, this guy is so absolutely cracked and weird, and there's no way he's an agent provocateur. You know, it's just like he's a crackpot, and not sure how much of that stuff even he believed. I think he just used it as a way to have sex
to get
with
laid.
whoever he wanted to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to get laid.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, he was notorious at women, you know, using ritual magic to get laid. That I think. That whole B666 thing was just like, I think he had this private joke, and we all saw the punchline, but nobody knew how to laugh at it.
Yeah, but if you really study Crowley, there were some bad things that he did too, that he even admits to, but not to the extent that they've made him out to be. And
he's just your average pervert.
Crowley was an OTO member. The Freemasons wouldn't even accept him into their society. The Golden Dawn and the Rosicrucian Society got tainted by him, because now if you say Golden Dawn, people think Crowley, but actually they kicked Crowley out because he tried to steal from them. But it's all a perception thing, you know. And if you're like, you get in the tribe mind and you don't do your own research extensively enough, you're just going to believe what the tribe tells you.
Right.
Look, if you make a big enough stink about anything, you can get a lot of people believing certain things. You know, like with Crowley, like with the Ouija board and stuff. Hell, I tell you what, if people think the Ouija boards are bad, if they only knew about psychomantiums.
What?
What is that?
Psychomantium is a whole room that is designed like a Ouija board.
That is kind
yeah,
of
it's like a mantium. You have a mirror. You're in a dark room. You've got a mirror that is... Let's see, I think the light source is behind the chair facing the mirror. And it's supposed to be you sitting there for X number of minutes and you start seeing, deer ant flora or, your own inner demons or it goes on and on. I've tried it several times in my downstairs bedroom where I have a antique mirror and all that, and
well, that's just like scrying. That's not bad.
I never see it. I never get the effect that you're supposed to get. I mean, eventually it's like, okay, I'm going to blow the candle out before I forget about it and go to bed now. But I haven't had any luck trying to get any kind of result from a psychomantium. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that I just haven't gotten anything out of it. My downstairs bedroom where I sleep, because I can, it's dark as pitch in there, and I have an antique wishbone mirror that belonged to my grandmother that I inherited. It's a wishbone mirror dresser, and I have I've tried the light in different places, and I've never gotten anything out of it.
All right, let's move on to the next question, guys. Liz, let's get to your final question of the night.
Already my final question of the night? Okay, well, it wasn't a very good question, but it did come over through Google Alerts. There were declassified drawings from the British government's UFO desk that were recently published by David Clark, and they're from 1962 all the way to 2009. And I'm just wondering if we can hope that we will ever see our government declassifying drawings that were made for Project Blue Book and such, or have we? Do you guys know? This was in Britain.
You could look in Black Vault. Black Vault's got a lot of declassified documents. So I've seen some, but I mean, how do you know if they're valid or not? Again, getting back to there's so much fake stuff out there, even with so-called declassified documents that are circulating around. You can't always tell just because it's stamped for top secret and has a signature on it. But will we ever see them? Possibly. I do like the Black Vault resource, though.
Is that online?
Black Vault. Yeah, it's blackvault.com.
Okay.
Yeah, isn't that the one John DeSouza tells everybody to go to?
I believe so. And I can't remember the guy that runs it, but he's been running Black
John
Vault
Greenwald.
for 10-15. There you go.
They just actually followed us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. That was a nice
Excellent.
one. Yeah, pretty happy about that. Liz, I don't think we're getting much action on your question here.
Well, it wasn't a very good question, and I knew it as soon as but you said things in the past month, and so I tried.
I realize
the problem is, though, like was stated, you can have all the pictures released you want, but how can they be validated?
Well, what I think is interesting is that the pictures from the National Archives in Britain are from so far back in time and so you could have a cross-referencing. They could be helpful in terms of cross-referencing. Okay, how many different types do we have? So you could do a nice little research project if you could get other pictures from other places.
Something to compare to.
Something to compare to. And also doing a longitudinal study on what kind of UFOs were people seeing. Did they just see this type between 1964 and 1969? What type of person saw that type? Or was it kids? Was it adults? Was it everybody? So, I kind of thought it was neat that somebody had grabbed these and put them in a book. But I guess my thought was I would like to see more of this kind of thing happening and being used, like people really delving in and doing more research, because these are things that do exist. They are eyewitness reports, and they're not somebody faking a photograph. You can draw anything you want, but most of the people who drew these were not artists, so they took some time and effort to draw what they saw as best they could. So, it does sort of take out the ooh wow factor of CGI and fake photography and that sort of thing because of the drawing. And many of these were from so long ago.
Right,
anyway.
Exactly. Until we got to digital cameras and whatnot, you couldn't really fake a 35 millimeter camera or, before. Which leads more validity to like McMinnville UFO sighting and the Pascagoula, Mississippi experiences and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean they were telling their story, and even the 1952 the photo of the Flatwoods Monster. It's not a photo; it's a drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody made a drawing, and that drawing could be redrawn, and it was redrawn, and it was redrawn in a way that made no sense whatsoever. But if you have the original drawings that original experiencers made, and we had a catalog or a database of those that people could do research from, that would be pretty cool, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to move on here. Eric Markham, your final question of the night.
Okay. Okay, we were talking earlier about the negative ET image and how with Tom DeLonge all ETs are evil. How much of this could be a cabal of either humans or aliens who want that perception because they're entrenched in, they like how they're running the show, and putting that negative vibe out there? If the benevolent aliens did come to try and help, we're already hardwired to think they're bad or they're evil.
I don't think it goes that deep.
I think you kind of answered your own question there too a little bit. If that was a question or more, that was a statement, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it.
Not really. I mean, could that be their way? Say, if there is a cabal of humans or a cabal of evil aliens, could that be their way of maintaining control? You put out this, you get the populace that you're controlling to fear the liberator.
I think that there's an initial problem with human ego and fear of the unknown, which I've come up against in myself. I don't have all my memories, so sometimes when I go out to do something involving aliens and I don't actually have a memory of what's going to happen next, there's a tremendous amount of fear involved with that. So you don't really need somebody to put out a more fearful message, except for the fact that would reinforce a natural human fear of the unknown. It's sort of like overkilling what the body naturally does or what human beings naturally do when faced with the unknown.
I think Markham has a little bit of a point here, is that I don't know necessarily if it would be aliens doing it, but, the possibility of government involvement trying to make sure that everybody thinks that aliens are bad and, putting that mindset out there, it may be one of those things to where they're trying to make it where if, some of the good aliens that they know about are out there do come down to so-called liberate or whatever, they don't want to lose their power.
Ooh. Yeah.
They're going to do whatever they can to make sure everybody wants to shoot down the, what could be the good guys.
Sure reminds me of the scene on Independence Day where they came out in the news and said, the president would like to say, please, guys, do not shoot at the UFO.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. That was absolutely hilarious. All right, let's move on here. Cooper, let's get your final question of the night.
So, you know what? I have a light and fun question. It's the holiday season. What do y'all want for Christmas?
Paranormal gear.
I want hot sauce bottles.
Seriously?
Yeah, here's something the audience doesn't know about me. I collect hot sauce bottles. So the ones that have like the really funky logos on them, I collect those. So if you're into like the real stupid hot sauce like I am, and you have some real cool bottles, I don't care if they're full or empty. Instead of throwing them out, just hold on to them, package them up, send them to old Davey here, because I love my collection.
Okay.
Canadian.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's simple. I want paranormal gear and I want medical supplies for our trauma kit. That's it. Very simple. What do you want, Elizabeth?
I want enough very happy clients telling other people about my very good service so that I have more than enough money to get me through the slow time of winter. But I really just want people to be happy and tell other people that I'm good at what I do, so then I'll have more than enough money to get through the winter. So, some simple.
So basically, all the if all the listeners share your site, then you'll be happy, and that's your Christmas.
Yeah, if all the listeners share my site and say something nice, especially if you're a listener who's come to me for healings or clearings or a reading, yeah, that'd be great. That would make me very happy.
Joseph?
I would like to be able to interview Travis Walton.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because I got some questions after reading this book I don't think anybody's asked him. Either I interview him or someone on the network interview him. Not like we did when we were at the Ozarks, but where he could really just hang out with us for longer than 30 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
How about Preacher? We haven't heard Preacher yet. What kind of guitar do you want for Christmas, Preach?
I don't. Yeah, I'm sort of saturated with those. I mean, I've got about 14 or 15. I don't really want anything. I mean, I just, I'm at that point in my life where I need to start getting rid of crap instead of accumulating it, because I'm single now and there's nobody to leave it to. So somebody's just going to pull up a junk wagon to the front door of my house and chuck about $30,000 worth of music gear in a dumpster somewhere.
Oh, I got a good home for that, buddy. I got a good home for that.
Some of that stuff.
I could use some amps and some other stuff. And you know what? I want to amend my wishes so that my Christmas wish is that Eric can play some really cool songs all the way through so I can sing them.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Liz is no Pat Benatar. Let me tell you that.
What do you mean?
She's better than... she can sing pretty... I was amazed that
I got a full ride scholarship.
Old Pat Benatar or new Pat Benatar?
Old Pat Benatar.
I went to Berkeley College of Music. I had a full ride scholarship for voice. What are you talking about, Dave? You don't know nothing, dude.
You don't know how to rock. You're more Nana Muscuri than you are Lita Ford.
Yeah, that's true.
Lita Ford's another good one.
Yeah. Or Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm.
Well, Lita Ford, you haven't heard me do blues. You haven't heard me do
I would actually like to hear that.
Beth Hart.
All right, let's move on to the questions because we are down to about the last 15 minutes of the show here. Roop, let's get your final question of the night in.
Okay, so I'm going to have to do this really fast. So Google and Facebook, you guys, if you listen to my show, Lighting the Void, I've been talking about this. Google and Facebook's artificial intelligence both created languages that only they could understand, both so fast that it even scared them. Billionaires like Elon Musk and such and other people that are running these companies are actually going to the United Nations to stop the production of artificial intelligent autonomous weapons. Am I the only one in this panel here that thinks that this is a super imminent threat and that we're not taking this seriously enough? Is Skynet about to turn on and become real?
Oh, hell yeah. I think it's a huge threat. You want to see the Terminator happen? Keep going.
Yeah.
Beyond that. No, beyond that is, okay, I've got a series of health issues, and the list just keeps growing every time I turn around and go to the doctor's office. If they could implant an artificial intelligent nanite in my bloodstream that could take care of the issues I'm facing, hell yeah. So once the camel gets its nose through the tent, how long before the human race as a biological entity disappears?
What I'm saying is they're already developing autonomous weapons right now. They're already testing them at Columbus University in combat form. These things are already creating their own language. We're already giving citizenship to artificial intelligent beings that would have admitted that they would wipe us out if we didn't like them enough. Technology moves faster than compound interest. I don't think we're taking this seriously enough.
Oh, no, absolutely not. We're creating our own version of the Cylons.
And as long as we have the want and the desire to always have the next newest best thing, okay, like you see people lining up to buy the iPhone X, which is, around $1,000 US. So that's about, I believe that's around $1,300 Canadian. That's ridiculous. And I agree with you, Joe. The fact that we are becoming desensitized to technology, and we think everything is cute, much like a little puppy or kitten, but we don't understand that eventually that grows up.
Yeah, and it grows up really fast. And when you got guys like Elon Musk who actually build this stuff and is a part of the industry, but even they're scared enough to try to rally people together to go to the United Nations, there's a real problem. And it's probably happening faster than we know it under our noses right now.
The big problem is that you've got, when you create an AI, I don't care what you program it with, if it becomes self-aware of itself, the problem is this thing has no emotions. It has no conscience. It has no set of morals. It looks at things as a computer would, artificially intelligent or not. It looks at things as a computer would. It says I or zero. And when it looks at the human race and says, well, this is a blight.
This is a fungus. It's a life, yeah.
Time to get rid of it. What do you do?
Do you think creating its own language is that considered being self-aware?
Yeah.
I think so.
I don't know if I'd call it self-aware, but I would call it self-adaptive.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
I think in order to be self-aware, you actually have to have some kind of a consciousness or some kind of a, a sense of being. And I think all this is doing is refining its algorithm. Mm-hmm. But it's evolution, people.
Yeah.
It's eventually going to get past that point, that rudimentary point.
We did a story on Sophia, the aliens or the AI citizen of Saudi Arabia. It's in the Encounter Online, and you can head to spacedoutradio.com to read that. But after we did that article, I really got thinking about this because I watched an interview with her on YouTube. Okay, where her handler was chatting with her, and one of the things that she could not understand was why she couldn't remember anything past 2 hours ago when they turned her on, and that bothered her because she also didn't understand why she didn't have emotions and why she didn't understand what emotions were because she couldn't calculate it. But the scary part about it was the handler actually said, "Don't worry, we will give that to you." Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that's just drawing the line in the sand way too deep. We don't need artificial intelligence to take over jobs at McDonald's or Walmart or things like that. We don't need that. There's a reason. There's a reason for that. What are they going to do? Put more people on the streets? I think if we sunk the money into what Eric said, which let's use some of this AI to help people, or what this Russian doctor is doing in China, where he is going to be the first human to get a full body transplant because his body is giving out, and he's going to go into a body that works. I'm cool with that. But if we're creating AI to take over jobs that humans do and they're going to walk amongst us as citizens,
And weapons. Let's not forget weapons. Yeah.
You know, that's dangerous because let's face it, with the military-industrial complex right now, how long of a time limit is it between Sophia being a cute little robot learning how to be human to becoming Terminator?
Exactly.
It sounds crazy saying it, don't it?
Yeah.
It sounds crazy saying it like it's something. But it's real, guys. I'm telling you.
Well, and you give this thing emotions too. What happens when you piss it off?
Well, it's going to get pissed off after a while, because it doesn't understand why it can't remember 2 hours ago. It's going to get real pissed off.
And it's armed with, and don't forget, it's armed with weapons.
And we all know from all the research that we've done, there's nothing that moves faster than weapon technology.
Exactly.
Nothing that moves faster under the radar than weapon technology.
Corey, let's get to your final question of the night.
Okay, so my final question of the night, we've kind of brushed upon it a little bit here and there, but how important do you believe that perceptions are in the paranormal? And I'll give an example. Locally, we had a very good team, actually, who was very loud about another team that was doing paranormal tourism stuff, and it's because they knew that they were going to screw it up. But after that other one did screw up and kind of got shut down, they have now turned around and they're doing a paranormal tourism. Now, mind you, that when they do this, it's going to have a good face on it. I've checked, and the money is going to the place that is allowing them to do it. But nonetheless, how does that look? How does that look to the public?
Well, it sounds like they're kind of hypocrites to me. Just as an outsider hearing about, what you're telling me without looking more into it, it sounds like at one point it was sour grapes, and now that the table's turned and they're getting a chance to, take the spotlight.
Corey, I hate to be rude. Maybe it was just a short in my headphones. I missed part of the question. Do you mind repeating it?
The question is how important is perceptions in the paranormal? And I gave an example of one group who made loud exclamations about another group who was doing paranormal tourism because they knew they were going to screw it up. But even once that other group screwed up and kind of got shut down and everything else, now they're turning around and they're doing a paranormal tourism. And I had stated that, this group will put a good face to it. They are very respectful. After doing some research, whatever money they're making is going to the place that there is allowing them to do this tourism bit. But the perception is what to the public, and how important is that in our paranormal field?
I would love to answer this question if you don't mind, guys, because I run a paranormal tour. And I can tell you this, the people who come on our tour, they don't care who's running it. They automatically expect that the people who are running it know what they're doing. They automatically expect that they are professional. They understand, or they expect that it's going to be like what they see on TV. And we have to break that all down for them, that it's not like what you see on television, that, there's no one here trying to be a hero. There's nobody here, who is going to look down on you if all of a sudden you don't start feeling right. So we have this little 10-minute education system with the people who take our tour. But in reality, because the majority of the public, their exposure to the paranormal isn't on social media, it isn't on radio shows like this, it's what they see flickering through the television, that they can't tell you whether a group is good or bad, nor do they care. So I don't think it hurts the perception at all. The only people who are actually calling BS on groups like this are those other groups who look at what this group is doing and saying, why are you doing it that way? You're making a mockery of our field. But I don't think the public sees it at all.
Well, I was just making an example of a perception. The main question is how important are perceptions in the paranormal. As we see so many different problems, we always talk about these different black eyes. How important is perception in the paranormal as we try to go forward?
I'm going to say what Dave said, because I'm not in a group. And because, you know what? The paranormal is always going to be there. It's like the ocean. And so regardless of who is working with it or not working with it, it's always going to be there. And you can get yourself all in a tizzy fit and an ego fit about somebody said this and somebody said that, and you can make those things really solid, significant, and real to your own detriment and to the detriment of the others around you. Or you could just go do the work, because the work's there and it's always going to be there. And that's my final word on that.
Joe, how do you feel about it? I mean, how important do you think perception is to the paranormal?
To be honest with you, man, I don't really understand the question. You mean the perception of the public to the paranormal?
Yes, the perception of the masses to the paranormal as we try to work forward.
Well, if you focus on the truth more instead of being fanatical and sensational, you're not going to get as much business, I can tell you that. But, if you're all about business, then perception's super important.
So let me expound on that just a little bit, because the other team went in and pretty much destroyed. They made it a public event. They went in and did damage to the historical site with a drunken party. And the loudest voice that was opposing this was another team. Now this team is advertising publicly and charging money, basically doing the exact same thing the other team did. But we have a better voice because we are going to do it right. But they're doing perception of the public is going to be, okay, you guys were, bashing and attacking this other event, but you're doing pretty much the exact same event. That would be where the perception comes in.
I wouldn't worry about it.
I mean,
as I look at things as we go forward here in the paranormal, the bottom line is that the perception that people have of us out there is important, because the fact of the matter is that the worse the perception is, the less of the people who need help are going to seek help from those who are doing it right. So I think myself,
but Corey, I'm going to cut you off.
Is important.
Corey, I'm going to cut you off right there, because people aren't doing their homework. Because if they were doing their homework, there wouldn't be a need for teams like Forest Moon Paranormal or Shane Saraway or Amber Avalona down in New Mexico, who are doing paranormal cleanup on people. So the regular public doesn't have a clue on what we're doing. They just find a team of ghost hunters and says, oh, this tour would be fun, or, oh, there's a ghost team, I'll get them into my house, because there is no public education on this. So unfortunately, it's going to be a fail every time.
And that's what I'm trying to get at, is the fact is that they do this, it creates a perception, and then it puts a black eye to everybody else who's doing it right and trying to go forward. That's why I'm saying, how important is this perception to us as the paranormal as we try to go forward? My opinion is that it's very important that we do all that we can to make sure that the right perception is out there and not the wrong perception, because that is hindering us.
And on that note, my friend, I think that's a great way to end this show. Corey Rees, Eric Cooper from S4. Remember, their show is after Spaced Out Saturdays. All you got to do is click on their banner at spacedoutradio.com, take you right to the show live. You don't need to worry about navigating through Spreaker anymore. Just go to spacedoutradio.com and click on S4, and it'll take you right to the show. Elizabeth Anglin, you have yourself a great show on Sunday. Thank you so much for being with us. Preacher, been great as well with you, my friend. And Joe Roop, keep growing that hair. You'll be one of us one day, my friend. You did a great job tonight. Thank you so much from KTLK, thefringe.fm. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. He brings us home and takes us out every single night on this program. Tomorrow night on the show, Dave Cruz is back with Spaced Out Saturdays, and then Elizabeth Anglin's Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Sundays. Both shows get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. I want to say thank you to a great week to my team, Bob Davis, Amy Martin, Michael W. Hall, Eric Markham, Tim Doyle, Jolene Lammers, Catherine James, fantastic crew that I work with on a daily basis. And I also want to say thank you to all of you listening at home, following us on social media. If you're in your cars listening on in, really appreciate you doing that. But most of all, the big thanks goes to everyone on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio and in the chat rooms listening to us on a nightly basis, participating in this show. You make it so much fun. I'm excited to see you on Monday when Butch Witkowski is back with Strange Days. Keep sharing the show. Keep putting the word out there, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you on Monday. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Keep on moving, people. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a great weekend. Good night.